Quick question. Do you know the difference between on-premises data gateways and virtual network data gateways in Microsoft Fabric? Or how to properly size your capacity based on workload types? If you hesitated, this video is for you. Welcome to the first part of our comprehensive DP600 exam preparation series. Today we're diving into the planning phase of Microsoft Fabric, the foundation that everything else builds upon. This section accounts for 10-15% of your exam score, but it's the knowledge you'll use every single day as a Fabric analytics engineer. Why planning your Fabric environment is non-negotiable. Planning your Microsoft Fabric environment might sound simple at first glance, but let's think about what's actually at stake. Picture this. Your organization is generating terabytes of data every single day. You have sales figures pouring in from multiple regions, product feedback from surveys, web traffic data tracking customer behavior, and machine learning models generating predictions. It sounds like a goldmine of opportunity, right? But decisions are still made based on gut instinct rather than facts. Why? Because the organization doesn't have a well-thought-out system in place to make sense of all this information. That's where proper planning comes in. It transforms a chaotic pile of data points into a clear, actionable story, ensuring that no opportunity gets overlooked. Now, let's break it down. Planning forms the backbone of a scalable and efficient data analytics system. Without it, even the most advanced tools in the world won't save you from inefficiencies, rising costs, or risks like non-compliance with data regulations. Think about an unplanned environment for a moment. The engineers might spend hours or days manually solving errors caused by mismatched data structures. Unnecessary resources could get tied up in oversized capacity that no one is fully utilizing. And because no one considered potential weak spots in security during setup, a compliance audit could spotlight vulnerabilities that bring your operations to a sudden halt. All of this is avoidable with the right preparation. The planning phase doesn't just affect your day-to-day tasks, it directly translates to your growth as an analytics engineer and your success with the DP600 exam. It's worth emphasizing that while planning is listed as around 10 to 15% of that exam, in real life it's 100% essential. Why? Because your ability to set up a clean, robust data environment will determine how effectively you can ingest, transform, and present data. It's at the core of how you'll work daily, whether that's configuring optimal data gateways or organizing PowerBI dashboards to meet key business requirements. Let's look at a real-life example to see why this is so important. Imagine a large retail company that had years' worth of unstructured sales data coming from in-store and online channels. Before proper planning, their system could only generate end-of-quarter reports, nothing actionable for real-time decision-making. Their analytics engineers decided to start fresh by carefully planning their Microsoft Fabric environment. They gathered business requirements from every department involved: marketing, inventory management, and e-commerce. They set up a plan to integrate real-time data using the appropriate data gateway and designed Power BI themes that provided tailored visuals specific to each department's needs. The result? The team was able to highlight regions with unexpected inventory shortages and pivot their supply chain strategies on the fly. This kind of transformation only happens if the groundwork is solid. Research shows that effective planning really does lead to long-term success. When a system transitions from gut-based decisions to data-informed strategies, it doesn't just improve operational efficiency, it often leads to smarter resource allocation and better alignment with overall company goals. For example, if you're in charge of setting up the analytics environment, it's critical to understand how requirements at the start influence your choices down the line, like which admin portal configurations to enable or the size and type of capacity to assign. Think of planning as creating a roadmap that guides every aspect of your environment, from the smallest setting in the Power BI portal all the way up to system-wide policies. But what about your role as a Fabric analytics engineer? When we talk about planning, we're not just speaking in broad terms, we're talking about tasks that will directly affect how you work every day. Choosing the right capacity, for instance, can mean the difference between smooth performance and constant bottlenecks. Configuring the admin portal properly ensures that permissions and settings meet both security needs and user demands. And picking the correct data gateway ties into how efficiently your team accesses real-time data without running security risks. These aren't abstract choices, they're decisions you'll make again and again, so mastering this now will pay off in the long run. Let's also not forget how planning ties into Microsoft's DP600 exam. You'll need to have a detailed understanding of the 4 essential components of planning: gathering business and technical requirements, setting up the admin portal, selecting the proper data gateway, and establishing Power BI themes that align with your organization's branding. These 4 pillars act as your foundation. A lack of attention in just one of these areas can lead to significant problems. For example, skipping capacity planning could result in system overloads when user demand spikes. That's why planning doesn't just help you pass the DP600, it prepares you for the realities of working in analytics. Here's a way to think about the 4 components of planning. Imagine a chair with 4 sturdy legs. Each leg plays an equal role in keeping the chair stable. If one leg breaks, or worse, is removed entirely, the chair wobbles or falls over. Planning your fabric environment works the same way. Each of the 4 pillars plays a crucial role in supporting your data system's balance, whether it's managing user permissions, integrating data gateways securely, or ensuring that capacity matches your workload. Missing one leg introduces inefficiency or risk to the system as a whole. Now, there's a certain irony here that's worth mentioning. The more seamless your data system looks to the end user, the more likely it's the result of hours of meticulous planning that took place behind the scenes. A well-planned environment allows daily operations to flow smoothly, letting your end users focus on insights rather than technical hurdles. It's this invisible success that directly benefits your career and positions you as a reliable leader in the field of analytics. So, what's the payoff? Planning is not just about passing an exam or configuring a few isolated settings. It's about creating a sustainable, efficient system that unlocks the full potential of your organization's data. It's often said that analytics is all about solving business problems. If that's the case, then planning is where you decide which problems are worth solving and how to solve them. We'll go deeper into this topic by exploring what makes up a well-rounded plan in Microsoft Fabric. There are 4 key components to focus on, and each one carries its weight in ensuring the success of your environment. You'll see how requirements gathering influences every stage, why the admin portal configuration can make or break compliance, how data gateways operate as bridges between systems, and why custom Power BI themes go beyond aesthetics to drive clear communication. Now that we've established why planning is a non-negotiable first step, let's shift gears and start looking at the details. It starts with identifying and gathering requirements, both technical and business related, and that's where we're heading next. Let's break down exactly what's involved in the first pillar of planning and how you can master it. The 4 pillars of data environment planning. Did you know that skipping just one of the 4 pillars in planning your Microsoft Fabric environment could lead to inefficient workflows, security vulnerabilities, or even failure on the DP600 exam? Each pillar plays a critical role in building a robust and scalable data system, and when one is missing, the entire structure becomes unstable. Let's explore these 4 key components: identifying requirements, configuring the admin portal, selecting data gateways, and designing Power BI themes, and unpack why they're essential not only for exam preparation, but also for long-term success as a Fabric analytics engineer. The first pillar, and arguably the most foundational, is identifying requirements. This is where everything begins. Without a detailed understanding of what the business needs or the technical constraints are, you're essentially building in the dark. To make this step effective, many organizations conduct requirements workshops to gather insights from all stakeholders. For example, let's say you're designing a data environment for a retail company. During the workshop, you'd aim to uncover details like whether they need real-time sales dashboards, frequent batch data processing for historical analysis, or machine learning capabilities for customer behavior predictions. The insights gained here shape every decision moving forward, from the features you enable in Fabric to how you size your capacities. Speaking of capacity planning, this is one of the most critical factors in the requirements phase. Choosing the wrong capacity SKU can lead to significant issues, either by overspending on unused resources or running into performance bottlenecks because your environment can't handle the workload. When identifying capacity needs, you'll take into account data residency regulations like GDPR for European clients, which might dictate where your data is processed and stored. You'll also need to think about billing preferences. Some organizations prefer separating costs by department to manage budgets more easily. Then there's the type of workload you'll be supporting. An organization focused on data engineering pipelines will have a very different capacity need compared to one operating heavy Power BI workloads. Beyond capacity, data ingestion methods need a close look. Microsoft Fabric comes packed with tools for bringing data into the platform, but your choice here isn't random. It's driven by the type of data sources and the skills of the team. Let's say your organization stores customer feedback in Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2, while transactional data resides in on-premises SQL databases. You might use shortcuts and pipelines for ingesting semi-structured data from the lake, while leveraging database mirroring to sync relational data. Notebooks and event streams might come into play if you are dealing with large-scale real-time data. It all depends on the workflow, the data volume, and your team's familiarity with tools like Spark or SQL-based platforms. The next big element under requirements is selecting the right data storage options. Microsoft Fabric gives you three main choices: Lakehouse, which handles semi-structured or unstructured data; Data Warehouse, ideal for structured, high-volume transactions; and KQL databases for lightweight, real-time interrogations. Each choice should align with the type of data you're managing and the technical skills in your team. For instance, a data science-driven environment may lean heavily toward Lakehouse storage paired with Spark for advanced analytics, while a more traditional setup might revolve around data warehouses and T-SQL. Now, let's shift to the second pillar of planning: configuring the Fabric admin portal. This portal acts as the control center for managing everything in your data environment, from security settings to performance optimizations. The portal's tenant settings play a large part in enabling users to create and manage Fabric items effectively. For example, enabling preview features is essential when your organization wants to explore new functionality but still maintain a testing-first approach. Similarly, configuring who can create Fabric workspaces ensures that only authorized users have access, which is critical for maintaining security in large teams. Another critical focus within the admin portal is capacity management. This involves creating, resizing, or even deleting capacities based on workload requirements. Say your company has a major product launch coming up, and workloads in your Fabric environment are expected to increase sharply for a few months. You'll need to temporarily boost capacities to handle the load, perhaps shifting resources from another project with lighter demands. Managing permissions for capacities is also critical. You don't want users with improper access rights making unintentional changes to high-priority workloads. Security features in the admin portal deserve special attention too. These settings ensure that data protection measures comply with governance policies. Features like disaster recovery options or tenant-wide settings for sensitivity labels must be configured correctly to avoid compliance failures. On the DP600 exam, questions often test your understanding of tenant configurations and how they contribute to both security and performance, so make sure to practice scenarios where these settings come into play. The third pillar in planning is choosing the right data gateways. These gateways act as bridges between your organization's data sources and the Fabric environment, enabling smooth ingestion and transformation of data. Without proper gateways in place, you may face delayed query responses, failed pipeline executions, or worse, a security breach. There are two main types of gateways: on-premises and virtual network. Each has specific use cases, so making the wrong choice can derail your entire setup. On-premises gateways are used when your data resides in physical servers within your organization's premises. For example, if your team needs to pull transactional data from an on-prem SQL database into your Fabric environment, an on-premises gateway is the clear choice. Virtual network gateways, on the other hand, are designed for secure access to data stored within Azure Virtual Networks. If you're working with Azure Synapse Analytics or secure blob storage, this is the type of gateway you'll configure. Setting these gateways up is straightforward, but must be done with care to avoid pitfalls. Configuration tasks often involve ensuring that the right connection credentials are in place and network firewalls allow traffic to Fabric without opening broader security risks. Recently, Microsoft added the ability for on-premises data gateways to work with data pipelines, which means they're now more versatile than ever in connecting diverse sources. Keep that flexibility in mind As you build your environment, it's not just about what you need today, but what you might need 6 months down the road. Lastly, we have Power BI themes, the fourth pillar that ties everything together visually. While this might seem like a more cosmetic part of planning, it's far more impactful than just making things look nice. A professionally designed theme ensures that your reports and dashboards maintain brand consistency across projects. Without it, stakeholders may focus on mismatched fonts or colors rather than the insights your data provides. The process of creating a Power BI theme typically starts in the desktop version of the app. Basic themes focus on fonts, colors, and layout settings, but advanced customization allows for direct JSON file editing for greater flexibility. For example, imagine a scenario where your company rebrands its logo and color palette. By starting with a well-built JSON theme, you can update visual elements across hundreds of reports within minutes rather than redesigning each one manually. This is why themes aren't just aesthetic, they help maintain productivity and consistency. Now, going back to the analogy I mentioned earlier, think of these four components: requirements, admin portal configurations, data gateways, and Power BI themes as the four legs of a chair. If just one of these legs is missing, the chair becomes unstable or even collapses entirely. That's exactly how a disjointed data system behaves when one of these pillars is overlooked. For instance, failing to thoroughly gather requirements might mean choosing the wrong storage solutions or underestimating workload capacities. Missing gateway configurations could lead to delays in accessing critical data for analytics. And while a lack of attention to themes may not halt operations, it could cause friction during presentations or strategy meetings, distracting your audience from the insights they're meant to focus on. And here's something to keep in mind. These four pillars are incredibly popular topics on the DP600 exam. You'll face questions that test your understanding of all of these areas, including how capacities impact performance, what admin settings align with governance needs, and how data gateways are deployed securely. The exam prioritizes practical, scenario-based understanding, which means your ability to connect these pillars to real-world tasks will directly influence your success. Understanding these foundations also prepares you to handle the demands of a career in analytics. As a Fabric analytics engineer, planning isn't something you do once and forget. It's a continuous process that evolves with the business, new technologies, and shifting priorities. To illustrate this, picture managing a manufacturing company with international plans. As environmental regulations tighten, you might need to adjust gateway configurations or data residency settings to ensure compliance in regions with stricter governance. Or consider adding a machine learning element to your system that wasn't part of the original plan. These updates rely on a solid foundation built during the initial planning phase. Mastering these four pillars now sets you up not just for the exam, but for effectively managing and scaling data environments in the real world. It's about keeping the chair sturdy and functional, no matter how your workload evolves over time. And now that we've laid the groundwork, it's time to dive deeper into each pillar. We'll start with the first one, requirements and capacity planning, and break down exactly how to identify your needs and make informed decisions. Let's take a closer look. Mastering capacity planning, avoiding costly mistakes. How do you right-size your capacity without overspending or under-delivering? It's a critical question, and the answer lies in mastering capacity planning, a cornerstone of Microsoft Fabric. Get it right, and your workloads run like a well-oiled machine, staying within budget and performing efficiently. Get it wrong, and you could face lagging systems, resource throttling, and rising costs. So let's dig into what capacity planning really involves and how it directly affects your daily work and your performance on the DP600 exam. Capacity in Microsoft Fabric essentially determines the resources available to power your data environment. Every Fabric capacity functions as a container for scenarios and workloads, managing storage, compute, and ingesting capacity. The size of your capacity, dictated by the SKU or stock keeping unit you choose, controls how many resources you have at your disposal. Think of it as budgeting for a team. A smaller team or capacity might work perfectly for light workloads, but if the tasks become too heavy, people get overworked, or in a Fabric context, your resources will get maxed out, resulting in throttled performance. On the flip side, if you hire a much larger team than needed, or purchase a high-capacity SKU without utilizing it effectively, you're overspending without gaining additional performance benefits. One of the biggest challenges with capacity planning lies in finding that perfect balance, where your workload intensity, data, residency requirements, and machine learning activities are all supported while staying within budget. For example, an organization ingesting terabytes of data daily through constant batch loads, accompanied by heavy Spark jobs for transformations, will need far greater resources than one primarily focused on occasional snapshot analyses. Budget constraints also play heavily into this decision-making process. A higher SKU like F64 offers cutting-edge performance but comes at a higher price tag. Without proper planning, organizations can unknowingly waste considerable amounts of money on over-provisioned capacities. Let's explore what these SKUs actually mean. Microsoft Fabric offers multiple capacity options, and the difference between smaller SKUs like F4 and larger ones such as F64 lies in the computational power and features they unlock. F4 is great for smaller projects, offering enough resources for non-intensive workloads, perfect for teams with light and infrequent data processing tasks. On the other hand, F64 capacity is designed for high-performance environments requiring advanced features like Microsoft Copilot, which harness AI to produce faster insights and automation. For instance, if you're training large-scale machine learning models or processing continuous streams of real-time data, an F64 capacity ensures the system can handle these tasks smoothly without bottlenecks. But here's the tricky part. Choosing an F64 SKU gives you access to more resources and advanced features, but it must be justified by your workload needs. Deploying an F64 SKU when an F4 would suffice is a common mistake for teams that haven't fully identified their requirements upfront. Just as much as underestimating your capacity needs can cripple performance, overestimating can drain your budget unnecessarily. Consider a real-world example where capacity planning failures caused significant setbacks. A mid-sized e-commerce company transitioned into Fabric to modernize its analytics environment. At the start, they underestimated the daily workload, setting up smaller F8 capacities. They didn't account for the surge in holiday season transactions nor the increased complexity of their data pipelines. Their Spark jobs slowed to a crawl, with processes that should have taken minutes stretching into hours. As workloads began stacking up, the organization faced throttling, which occurs when too many resources are demanded at once, forcing the system to delay or fail tasks altogether. To fix the issue, they had to scramble mid-quarter to upgrade to F32 capacities, losing precious time and money. This was a preventable situation if they had planned ahead. The factors influencing capacity sizing are nuanced but manageable with the right approach. The first consideration is workload type. Microsoft Fabric environments don't operate in a vacuum. There are intensive data flows, such as regular ingestion of semi-structured data, Spark transformations for cleaning datasets, and frequent queries run by PowerBI users. A company with light reporting needs might not even touch Spark, relying purely on relational data transformations within warehouses. In such cases, smaller capacities suffice. But organizations using advanced analytics workflows, like predictive models or operational dashboards with real-time updates, require far broader resources. Having a clear understanding of these workflows upfront lets you choose a SKU that aligns with current and future needs. Team skills also play an unseen role in capacity planning. For instance, if your team has plenty of experience with SQL-based transformations but less familiarity with Spark, you may lean toward planning workflows that rely on simpler models, which influence your capacity requirements. On the other hand, teams with advanced skills in distributed systems may handle more complex workloads effectively, even on smaller capacities. Matching workloads to team skills ensures that the capacity chosen isn't just the right size technically, but practically usable with the resources you have. Then there's the matter of cost. Budget constraints aren't just an annoying limitation. They're a reality for nearly every organization. Higher capacity SKUs cost significantly more, meaning you can't simply default to the highest option and call it a day. Instead, think strategically. What SLA, service level agreement, guarantees does your business need, and how much performance can you get within those constraints? Even things like data residency regulations, where certain data must be stored or processed in specific geographical locations, can impact the number of capacities and how they're distributed. From an exam perspective, Capacity planning matters because it's a frequent topic on the DP600. You'll likely encounter questions asking you to size capacities given workload intensity, real-world constraints, or even to map your capacity choices back to Azure cost management strategies. For example, you could be presented with a scenario where a company is processing 50 GB hourly data ingestion and is also required to deploy Spark for near real-time transformations. Knowing how to calculate those capacity and SKU requirements will be your edge both in the exam and in real-world scenarios. Let's walk through a simple example of how to calculate your capacity needs. Imagine you're working with an organization that ingests 10 gigabit of transactional data per day for analysis, uses moderate Spark workloads to clean the data, and runs 30 Power BI dashboards weekly. In this case, the workloads are moderate but consistent. You might start with an F4 capacity to determine if it can handle peak workloads, or use an F8 capacity as a precaution to ensure there's no risk of throttling during high usage periods. However, if the organization plans to add AI-driven models or machine learning experimentation in the next quarter, you'd recommend scaling up to F16 or potentially even F32. By anticipating future demand rather than reacting to current limitations, you ensure the environment remains scalable without breaking the bank. It's also useful to factor in project timelines. If workloads are expected to spike temporarily, for example, during annual audits or large marketing campaigns, it might make sense to use flexible capacity settings. Microsoft Fabric allows reconfiguring to temporarily scale up resources for specific timelines and scale down when demand eases, offering better cost optimization. Ultimately, though, capacity planning isn't an isolated task. It's part of the broader ecosystem of creating a functional, high-performing Microsoft Fabric environment. That's why succeeding in this area impacts not only operational stability, but career outcomes as well. Analysts and engineers who optimize capacity prevent their teams from experiencing costly downtime and improve project efficiency, making them invaluable contributors in any analytics-driven organization. It's this kind of foresight and planning that distinguishes a good engineer from the best. So capacity planning isn't just an exam topic. It's a skill that gives you direct control over performance, budgets, and how well the endpoints of your data system work together. By calculating the right size, anticipating future needs, and balancing cost and performance, you're setting yourself up for success in more ways than one. Capacity, however, is still just one factor among many in planning an effective environment. Next, we're going to explore another cornerstone, data gateways. These are the bridges that allow data to flow between sources and destinations seamlessly. Get these wrong, and even the perfectly planned capacity will lead to delays and inefficiencies. So let's pivot to understanding how to choose, configure, and optimize your data gateways to keep everything running smoothly. Choosing the right data gateway, on-premises versus virtual. What's the difference between on-premises and virtual network gateways, and why does it matter so much when working in Microsoft Fabric? The answer might surprise you. These gateways aren't just technical tools. They're the bridges that connect your data to Fabric, making it accessible, useful, and secure. Choose the wrong one, and you're opening the door to a host of issues, like security vulnerabilities, poor performance, and even failed connections that leave your analytics stranded. So, let's break down what these gateways do, how they work, and why selecting the right one is absolutely critical for ensuring seamless integration in your data environment. To start, think of data gateways as middlemen between your data sources and Microsoft Fabric. Their job is simple but crucial. They enable secure communication by transferring data between those sources and your Fabric environment. Without them, it would be incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to connect and pull information from external systems, whether they're located in a traditional on-premises server or secured behind Azure's virtual network. Gateways make real-time or near real-time data access a reality for organizations. Without them, analytics would grind to a halt. The real challenge lies in picking the right gateway for your specific use case. Microsoft Fabric offers two primary options, the on-premises data gateway or the virtual network data gateway. And here's the catch. They're not interchangeable. Each one is designed for a very specific kind of data source, and using the wrong type can result in major inefficiencies or even non-compliance with data governance policies. So let's discuss the differences between the two and how to determine which one suits your organization's needs. The on-premises data gateway is exactly what it sounds like, a gateway that connects Fabric to data sources located in your organization's on-prem infrastructure. This might include SQL databases, file systems, or other legacy systems housed within your physical or virtual servers. It works by installing gateway software directly onto a local server that resides within your network. Once installed, the gateway establishes a secure connection to Fabric, allowing data to flow between your on-premises servers and the cloud environment. The Virtual Network Data Gateway, however, is designed to facilitate secure access to data stored within the Azure cloud, particularly for data that resides behind a virtual network. For example, this could include data stored in Azure Blob Storage or Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 that's secured using private endpoints. Unlike the on-premises gateway, the virtual network option doesn't require installing anything on a local machine. Instead, it integrates directly into Azure's existing network infrastructure through a series of configuration steps, including resource registration, subnet creation, and setting up private endpoints. This ensures controlled, secure access to data behind Azure's protected boundaries. Now, when deciding between the two, location and security requirements for your data are your guiding factors. For any resource physically located on your premises, such as a SQL server or older ERP systems, the on-premises gateway is your go-to solution. But if your data lives entirely in Azure and needs to maintain the strict security protocols of a virtual network, the Virtual Network Gateway is the correct choice. Let's illustrate this difference with a practical example. Imagine a healthcare provider managing patient data. Their older systems store sensitive information locally, while their newer analytics workflows rely on more modern data stored in Azure Data Lake. To meet compliance requirements like HIPAA, they need to control access at every step. In this case, they would set up an on-premises data gateway to connect their local SQL databases to Fabric. For the data in Azure, they'd configure a virtual network gateway, ensuring that private endpoints and network rules keep unauthorized users out while still allowing Fabric to access the data it needs. Without this dual gateway approach, either their local data would be inaccessible or their Azure data would violate strict network security policies. Setting up these gateways comes with its own set of steps, and each type has unique requirements. For the on-premises gateway, you'll start by installing the gateway software onto a local server that's part of your network. Microsoft recommends ensuring this server is well maintained and always updated, as outdated versions of the gateway software can cause compatibility issues with Fabric. After installation, you'll create a new connection in Microsoft Fabric, helping link your on-premises data source to Fabric's integrated tools like pipelines or PowerBI. One important step to keep in mind for the DP600 exam is configuring authentication for these connections. Fabric requires you to provide credentials during setup, and weak authentication protocols could leave your systems open to attack. Misconfiguring this could lead to failed connections, or worse, a critical security breach. The Virtual Network Gateway setup is more intricate and begins entirely within Azure. First, you register the Power Platform resource provider within your Azure subscription. This sounds technical, but is simply a required step to enable Azure services to communicate with Fabric. Next, you'll focus on your network settings. You need a private endpoint for your data resource, say an Azure Data Lake folder, and you'll also create a subnet within your virtual network. These two elements work together to securely isolate your data from potential external threats while still allowing Fabric to act as an intended trusted user. Once these steps are completed, you can establish the connection in Fabric, ensuring seamless access while complying with governance policies. One common exam-relevant detail to remember here is the role subnets play in virtual network gateways. Subnets act as a partitioned layer of your broader network, offering precise control over what connects to your data. For example, many organizations use subnet rules to specify that only applications like Fabric can access a certain storage account. This granularity is crucial for organizations that deal with strict data controls in industries like finance or healthcare. Security is a major emphasis when learning about gateways, and for good reason. The entire purpose of using these tools is to bridge data securely, not just conveniently. Without proper configuration, data gateways can become entry points for unauthorized access or attacks. The on-premises gateway, for example, may fail to protect the local network if installed on a compromised or outdated server. Meanwhile, skipping necessary steps like private endpoint setup in a virtual network gateway could potentially expose sensitive cloud-stored information to unintended parties. This is where gateways really shine, though. When configured properly, they enable both real-time and secure access to data. With real-time access, organizations can build dashboards or analytics tools that reflect up-to-the-minute changes in the data. This becomes particularly important in industries like retail, where quick decision-making around inventory or supply chain disruptions might rely on immediate insights. On the security side, the gateway setup ensures that this real-time pipeline doesn't sacrifice the integrity of the system. Configuring data ingress and egress rules means you retain control of what information flows into Fabric and what stays within your network. When working with gateways, you're bound to encounter issues at some point, and troubleshooting becomes an inevitable task. One common pitfall involves network firewalls. For on-premises gateways, firewall rules in your local network must allow traffic to and from the gateway. If these rules aren't set up properly, you'll see connection failures frequently, leaving you wondering why the pipeline isn't working. The simple remedy here is to confirm the port ranges and IP addresses required by the gateway, according to Microsoft's documentation, adjusting firewall rules as needed. Another issue involves capacity throttling. Virtual network gateways currently share capacity with other Fabric resources, meaning their performance can be impacted if your overall Fabric capacity is nearing its limits. If data queries start taking longer than expected, it's worth reviewing your capacity allocations to ensure that the gateways have enough resources to handle peak workloads. Addressing this early avoids bottlenecks that could delay critical data processes. At the end of the day, choosing the right gateway doesn't just determine how efficiently your data gets to Fabric, it impacts your system's overall integrity and usability. Each gateway type has its place, and the key is matching the tool to your business's needs. By making smart choices upfront, you avoid wasted time on troubleshooting, protect sensitive information, and keep workflows connected. With gateways covered, we're ready to move on to another crucial element of Microsoft Fabric, the admin portal. This is where you'll manage the finer details of your environment, like tenant settings, permissions, and disaster recovery options. Let's take a closer look at how these settings impact both the DP600 exam and your day-to-day operations. Unlocking the power of the Fabric admin portal. Did you know the Fabric admin portal holds the keys to your entire data environment? It's not just another management interface. It's the central hub that oversees how your entire Microsoft Fabric system operates. Whether it's about enabling features, tweaking capacities, or ensuring compliance, everything starts here. If you're aiming to succeed as a Fabric analytics engineer or on the DP600 exam, understanding how to navigate and configure this portal is absolutely essential. But here's the catch. Even small missteps, like a poorly configured tenant setting, can wreak havoc on your environment. Misconfigured permissions can expose sensitive data, a single unchecked feature might throttle performance, and improper capacity allocations can leave your system strained. So let's not just skim the surface, let's go deep into what makes the admin portal the nerve center of Microsoft Fabric. When we talk about the admin portal, think of it as your control room. It's the place where administrators manage almost every aspect of the analytics environment, from security settings to resource allocations. But importantly, access to this portal isn't given to everyone. It's specifically available to roles like Global Administrator, Power Platform Administrator, or Fabric Administrator. Having one of these roles gives you the authority to unlock its full potential, which is exactly why it's such a big focus for the DP600 certification. The goal isn't just to manage features and settings, it's to configure an analytics environment that is both robust and secure, tailored to the organization's specific operational needs. Every setting you adjust here ripples across your environment, affecting performance, governance, and even compliance. Let's start with one of the core features of the portal. Tenant settings. Tenant settings allow administrators to enforce policies, manage the creation of Fabric items, and enable advanced functionality. For instance, one of the most overlooked but extremely useful options here is Git integration. This feature allows version control for your data processes, enabling things like rollback in case of errors and version history for easier collaboration between team members. Turning this on is especially valuable in complex projects. Without version control, it's far too easy to override workflows or lose critical development iterations. Here's one for productivity enthusiasts. Enabling preview features. These give users early access to experimental features within Fabric. For organizations that want to test out newer analytical capabilities or tools before rolling them into a production environment, enabling previews provides a low-risk way to experiment. However, keep in mind that test environments are recommended when preview features are active. The last thing you want is an experimental feature causing unexpected disruptions in a high-priority production pipeline. Tenant settings also allow for comprehensive security control, which is critical in organizational environments subject to regulatory policies. For instance, you can block public internet access if your organization processes particularly sensitive data. Let's say your organization deals with confidential government data. In this case, restricting access to trusted private networks brings an additional layer of protection. Another noteworthy control is the ability to enable connections through secure services like Azure Private Link, which further tightens access points, ensuring that even Fabric itself adheres to your organization's existing network security structure. These aren't just abstract options, they directly impact the safety of your data flows and pipelines. But perhaps the most impactful component of tenant settings is how granular they can be. Administrator controls can apply to the entire organization, specific user groups, or even everyone except certain groups. Say you're working in a diverse environment with a group of power users who regularly experiment with new tools and another group of guest users with limited permissions. Tenant settings allow you to apply Git integration for just the power users while limiting resource access to the guest users, ensuring the right balance between functionality and security. These configurable boundaries are often tested on the DP600 exam, where you'll be presented with scenarios that demand setting controls based on organizational policies. Next up, capacity management settings. This is where you'll determine resource allocations, which means it's one of the most important aspects of long-term environment performance. Within the admin portal, you can create, resize, or delete capacities as needed. Let's say your organization has distinct analytics workloads. One for public-facing dashboards updated daily, and another for large-scale batch data processing that runs weekly. With capacity configurations, you can dedicate a smaller, consistent capacity to the dashboards while assigning a larger, more flexible capacity to the batch jobs. Additionally, permissions for capacities become a crucial feature here. Administrators have the choice to restrict access so that only authorized workspace admins can modify Spark pools, for example. This ensures that critical workloads aren't accidentally disrupted by users experimenting with Spark configurations, something that can easily lead to bottlenecks or outages if left unchecked. Capacity configurations don't stop with Spark pools. For PowerBI users, you can control who can connect reporting tools to certain capacities or adjust settings to optimize workspace performance. During peak data usage, let's say during the last quarter of the fiscal year, where reporting frequencies spike, dynamic resizing allows admins to allocate additional resources temporarily and scale them down once the loads normalize. These tactics aren't just about keeping systems running, they focus on cost-effective resource management. On the DP600 exam, you'll definitely encounter questions that test your understanding of how to allocate capacities dynamically based on fluctuating demand. Now, here's a feature that doesn't always get the spotlight it deserves, but plays a critical role behind the scenes: disaster recovery. Setting up disaster recovery within the Fabric admin portal ensures your organization's data remains accessible even when something goes wrong. Let's walk through enabling it step by step. First, locate the capacity you want to configure and head to the disaster recovery options. The portal will ask you to select your recovery region, a backup region within Azure. For instance, if your primary region is the East US, you might configure the West US as your fallback. Once this is set, backups automatically mirror your pipeline configurations, datasets, and reports across both regions. What happens if the East US region faces an outage? Disaster recovery kicks in, allowing your organization to redirect its resources and processes seamlessly to West US. This not only minimizes downtime, but protects against any potential data loss during unexpected outages. From an exam perspective, expect to see scenarios where setting up multi-region backups is critical. These aren't just for theoretical preparation, they're skills tested to gauge readiness for real-world scenarios. Beyond workflows, every admin portal setting ties back to governance, a core concept both in Microsoft Fabric and the DP600 exam. Governance policies ensure that data within your environment adheres to any compliance requirements your organization faces. For example, every industry has sensitive data concerns, whether it's financial records in banking or PHI in healthcare. The admin portal's ability to compartmentalize capacities, restrict tenant settings, or enable sensitivity labels is how Fabric ensures you meet these unique requirements without compromising on usability or performance. So, why does any of this matter for you? Mastering the admin portal isn't just about flipping switches or toggling features. It's about understanding how settings map to the broader needs of your organization or clients. When you work as a Fabric analytics engineer, you're not just making things work, you're making them work efficiently, securely, and in compliance with governance. The DP600 exam doesn't shy away from this reality. Many portal-related questions will test not only whether you know where these settings are, but also whether you understand their purpose and impact. One common challenge that trips people up, whether on the job or the exam, is misconfiguring tenant-wide settings. Take enabling preview features as an example. While it can be helpful during testing, forgetting to isolate these features into a sandbox environment could disrupt production workspaces if they behave unpredictably. That's why mastering these configurations in controlled environments before scaling them to an organization-wide level is essential. Another pitfall? Overlooking permissions. Giving too much access, whether at the capacity level or within pipeline level settings, opens the door to accidental disruptions or even malicious activity. It's clear that the admin portal isn't just an interface, it's the foundation that holds everything in Microsoft Fabric together. From governing security groups to allocating resources dynamically, the features here prepare you for both the practical aspects of data work and the challenging scenario-based questions on the DP600 exam. By understanding each of these functions in depth, you gain a dual advantage: stronger exam preparedness and the confidence to tackle real-world problems effectively. And with that foundation established, it's time to shift gears to a topic that's just as important, though often underestimated: designing Power BI report themes. These might seem like a finishing touch, but they're so much more than aesthetics. Let's see how creating the right theme can improve clarity, usability, and even stakeholder buy-in. Creating professional Power BI report themes. What if your Power BI reports could consistently wow stakeholders and clients, not just with the insights they deliver, but with how polished and professional they look? That's the power of custom Power BI report themes. While most users spend their time focusing on the data, your presentation can make or break how effectively that data communicates its message. A consistent, well-designed theme does more than look nice. It standardizes your reports, makes them easier to read, and ensures they're aligned with your organization's branding. Without this consistency, reports can feel disorganized, visually unappealing, and even confusing for your audience. Let's think about the common issues a poorly designed or inconsistent theme can create. Imagine presenting a dashboard to executives where each page uses different fonts, mismatched colors, and inconsistent chart styles. What happens? Instead of focusing on the numbers and insights, stakeholders are distracted by how messy everything looks. Worse yet, it can undermine trust in your analysis. It's not just about aesthetics. Reports need to communicate data clearly and concisely. A poorly laid out theme can waste time, as viewers try to decipher where to look and what matters most, or even lead to misunderstandings. That's why custom themes aren't just a design concern, they're a functional part of data communication. So how do you apply themes in Power BI? It starts with using Power BI Desktop. Open your report and navigate to the View tab. From there, you'll find the Themes option. This lets you choose from built-in options if you're in a hurry, but more importantly, it allows you to customize or import a theme specific to your brand or use case. You can go as simple or as detailed as needed. For example, let's say your company's primary brand colors are navy blue and light gray, with Calibri as the preferred font. You can define these colors and font choices directly within the theme settings, ensuring every chart, slicer, and visual element matches your branding. You can even save and share this theme across your entire team, creating consistency no matter who builds the report. What takes this to the next level is JSON. JSON files store the underlying structure of a Power BI theme, giving advanced users detailed control over every visual aspect of their reports. If you're willing to learn the basics of editing JSON, you can achieve highly customized themes that go far beyond the built-in editor's limits. For example, JSON lets you define properties like axis gridline colors, data label styles, and even conditional formatting thresholds. Not only does this level of customization give your reports a professional edge, but it also opens the door for dynamic adaptability. Say you manage a corporate report distributed to multiple departments, each with its own branding. With a well-constructed JSON theme, switching out the primary colors and logo for each department becomes a matter of minutes, not hours. Let's break this down into an example. Imagine you're tasked with building a sales performance dashboard for a retail company. You start with an unrefined report, bright clashing colors in the bar charts, 3 different fonts across the visuals, and no alignment in text size between headers and labels. The result? The report looks cluttered and unprofessional. By applying a custom theme, where you define a clean palette of 2 to 3 complementary colors, use a single font style for all elements, and unify the size and placement of headings, you can transform the same data into a polished, readable experience. Suddenly, key insights pop out immediately, and stakeholders can focus on what matters, the story your data is telling. One of the great things about working with JSON is that Power BI makes it easy to start small. When you've applied and customized a theme in the desktop editor, you can export it as a JSON file. This file becomes your template for further refinement. Open it in a simple text editor, and you'll see key sections like data color palette, which manages the default colors for your charts, or visual styles, where you can specify how each type of chart should appear. By editing these properties, you have complete control over how your reports look, not just for a single project, but for every report that uses this theme going forward. Now, you might be wondering, how does this relate to the DP600 exam? The creation and application of Power BI themes are integral to the concepts tested. On the exam, you'll encounter scenarios where maintaining brand consistency, improving report readability, or adhering to organizational guidelines are part of the question. Understanding how to edit and apply themes isn't just a bonus. It's a practical, tested skill that can make the difference between an average exam score and an excellent one. Microsoft expects you to not only know how to apply themes, but also to understand their impact on usability and communication. In the real world, custom themes solve practical problems beyond the exam as well. Branding consistency is one of the top challenges for large organizations. When a company has hundreds of employees building reports, manually checking each one for consistent colors and fonts would take an enormous amount of time. By implementing a well-designed theme, organizations can achieve uniformity automatically. Plus, having reports that look professional builds stakeholder confidence. It signals that care has been taken in how the data is presented, which often extends to the credibility of the insights themselves. Themes also improve usability. Imagine you're leading a training session for a new team. With consistent themes, every report follows the same layout convention, so new users can navigate them more intuitively. The time saved, not having to orient people to different formats and setups, translates directly into improved efficiency. And that's not even counting how easier navigation and clearer visualizations reduce misunderstandings and errors in decision-making. Let's take another example of customization. Say your organization frequently uses red and green to indicate negative and positive performance trends. Instead of manually applying these colors to every chart and visual, you can encode this color logic into the theme's JSON file. Set conditional formatting rules for color changes based on specific thresholds. For instance, set anything below 0 to appear red and above 0 to appear green. This not only saves time, but also ensures consistency across reports. If one green means positive revenue and another green means inventory surplus, users could be left guessing. What's essential to remember is that themes are more than just finishing touches. They can drive efficiency, save hours of repetitive work, and enhance the clarity of your reports. And the benefits aren't confined to Power BI. A cohesive design principle can extend into PDF exports or shared presentations, ensuring consistency no matter where your reports appear. Another way themes shine is when working in collaborative environments. Let's say you're part of a cross-functional analytics team where multiple people contribute to the same report. Normally, this process could lead to several mismatched visual styles as everyone does their own thing. But with a custom theme applied, you ensure everyone's work aligns automatically. The team spends less time reviewing visual inconsistencies and more time finishing the report. At this point, you might be wondering if it's worth the effort to learn JSON for something that seems more design-oriented. The answer is yes, and here's why. By mastering themes, you're adding an extra layer to your analytics skill set. It's rare to find engineers who have both strong data processing capabilities and a polished approach to dashboard presentation. Being able to produce clear, insightful, and visually stunning reports gives you a distinct edge, whether you're building a financial analytics tool for your CEO or presenting actionable insights to clients. Stakeholders may forget the technical intricacies of SQL queries and pipelines, but they remember dashboards that make the data come alive. And here's something you don't want to miss. While learning theme creation might take a little extra effort, it's the type of skill that pays dividends repeatedly. Once you've built a library of tested JSON themes, you won't need to start from scratch every time. Just tweak the existing file for specific requirements or new use cases. That's hours of saved work every year, especially in roles where report creation is a regular task. Ultimately, custom report themes aren't just about impressing your audience. They're about creating practical, sustainable systems that work for you and your team. They lend credibility to your analytics, simplify navigation, and ensure your reports are efficient and scalable. For the DP600 exam, Mastering Theme Creation shows Microsoft that you're not only adept at technical data processes, but also skilled in the softer, equally important aspects of communication through visuals. So now you understand how a strong Power BI theme sets you apart, but theory alone isn't enough practice. You need the tools to experiment with these concepts. That leads us to the next crucial step, setting up a free Microsoft Fabric Sandbox environment. A sandbox lets you test and apply these themes without worrying about breaking a live environment. Let's see how you can set it up and start practicing these skills hands-on. Setting up your free Microsoft Fabric Sandbox. What if you could practice everything you've learned without spending a dime? That's where a free Microsoft Fabric Sandbox environment comes in. A risk-free, hands-on space to explore the platform's features and solidify your skills. Whether you're configuring data gateways or creating custom report themes, having your own testing environment is invaluable for developing confidence and preparing for the DP600 exam. But there is one roadblock that catches many people off guard. Microsoft typically requires a business email address to set up its Fabric trial, which can feel like a dead end if you don't have one. Fortunately, there's a straightforward workaround to overcome this challenge, and it's what I'm going to walk you through step by step. Let's start by understanding what the sandbox is and why it's so critical. Think of it as your personal lab, where mistakes have no consequences and experimentation is encouraged. You can test advanced features, refine your administrative skills, and even simulate real-world scenarios without risking production environments. For anyone studying for the DP600 exam, this environment mirrors what you'll encounter in the test. That means you're not just reading about Fabric, you're applying the skills hands-on. Whether it's setting up user permissions, fine-tuning tenant configurations, or practicing JSON-based Power BI theme customizations. Without this practical experience, you're only halfway prepared for both the exam and real-life analytics projects. Now let's tackle the business email requirement. The first thing you need is access to Microsoft Azure, but if you've tried signing up with a personal email, you may have been greeted with a message saying, "Sorry, you're not eligible for a free account." That's because Azure expects a business email as part of its setup process. Here's the trick to bypassing this. You can create a business email yourself by using a feature in Azure called Microsoft Entra ID, formerly Azure Active Directory. It takes about 10-15 minutes, and once you're done, you'll have everything you need to start your free Fabric trial. To begin, head over to Azure.com and sign in using any personal email address you already use for Microsoft services. Once you're logged into the Azure portal, search for Microsoft Entra ID in the top navigation bar. This service is where you'll set up what essentially acts as your organization's user directory. Inside Entra ID, navigate to the Users tab and select the option to create a new user. At this point, the system will ask for a username and generate a business email address in the format of username, your domain, on Microsoft.com. Note, This email is what you'll use to sign up for the Fabric trial later on, so write it down or save it somewhere safe. Now that you've created the user, there's one more step before it's ready to access Fabric. You'll need to assign the new account a role within Entra ID, and the role you want here is Fabric Administrator. Why does this matter? This role ensures the new user has full access to all Fabric settings and features, including the admin portal. Without these permissions, you'll find yourself restricted when practicing key tasks during your Sandbox setup. Assigning the role is simple. Go to the Roles and Administrators section in Entra ID, find your new user, and assign Fabric Administrator. Once that's done, the setup for your business email is complete. Now you're ready to activate your free Microsoft Fabric trial. Head over to app.fabric.microsoft.com and sign in with the business email address you just created. The first time you log in, you'll likely be prompted to update your password. This is a standard security step, so don't skip it. Once inside, Fabric will guide you through enabling your free trial. If you navigate to create a new data flow or workspace and see a message prompting you to upgrade to a trial, go ahead and confirm. This activates all features under Microsoft Fabric for the trial period, giving you access to data flows, the Lakehouse, PowerBI, and more. Before we go further, let's address a crucial point: avoiding unexpected costs. While the Microsoft Fabric trial is free, the underlying Azure account operates on a pay-as-you-go basis. That means it's possible to accidentally incur charges if you create Azure resources unnecessarily. To prevent this, always double-check the services you're enabling. Stick to components directly related to Microsoft Fabric, like Lakehouse, Fabric items, and data flows, and avoid creating additional SQL servers, high-performance clusters, or other resource-heavy services unless absolutely necessary. Azure's pricing calculator is a helpful tool if you're not sure whether a resource comes with costs. By staying cautious, you can keep your Sandbox truly cost-free throughout your trial period. With the Sandbox environment ready, the next step is to optimize it for DP600 exam preparation. Here's where it becomes more than just a practice space. You can use it to replicate scenarios commonly covered on the exam. Creating and testing data pipelines, setting up data ingestion methods, and experimenting with tenant settings all fall within the scope of the DP600 syllabus. For example, let's say you want to understand how sensitivity labels work for securing data. You could simulate the process within the Sandbox by creating multiple users with different permissions, then uploading mock datasets marked with sensitivity labels. By testing how these labels impact user access or visibility within reports, you'll gain first-hand experience that's directly applicable to exam questions. The Sandbox also shines when it comes to trying out new features before rolling them into real-world deployments. For instance, if you're considering enabling a preview feature within Fabric, you can activate and test it in the Sandbox first to evaluate how it impacts workflows. This is particularly useful for organizations where minor missteps in production environments can result in downtime or frustration among end users. With the trial environment, you can safely explore how things like Git integration or updated interface elements function before making any commitments in a live setting. Another key advantage of the Sandbox is its similarity to the DP600 exam setup. The exam includes tasks such as configuring admin portal settings, setting up data gateways, and managing resource capacities. Working in the Sandbox mirrors these tasks almost exactly, ensuring you're not caught off guard on test day. For example, one exam scenario might ask you to assign workspace permissions across multiple departments or adjust capacity allocations for high-demand periods. By practicing these actions ahead of time in your Sandbox, you're building muscle memory that will make exam questions feel intuitive. As you begin exploring, take time to familiarize yourself with every feature Fabric has to offer. Start with workflows like ingesting data into the Lakehouse, transforming it using pipelines, and visualizing the output in PowerBI. Dive into capacity management configurations, where you can practice resizing and monitoring workloads. Experiment with different data gateway setups, both virtual network and on-premises options, to see how they connect various data sources to Fabric. And don't overlook tenant settings. Use this opportunity to toggle options like preview features or workspace creation restrictions to understand their impact on your environment. These exercises aren't just for the exam. They're equipping you with essential skills for managing Fabric environments in real-world roles. The Sandbox also gives you flexibility to try advanced topics at your own pace. Let's say you're already comfortable with basic data flows and want to focus on troubleshooting gateway errors or testing performance optimization techniques. There's no pressure here. Unlike production systems, where a single mistake can disrupt workflows, the Sandbox absorbs errors, letting you learn from them without consequence. This freedom is especially useful for building skills that go beyond textbook knowledge. Things like solving throttling issues during Spark jobs or testing JSON customizations for Power BI themes. By setting up a free Fabric Sandbox, you're not just preparing for an exam, you're creating a low-risk environment to build expertise. It lets you translate theory into action, experiment without fear, and unlock the full potential of Microsoft's analytics platform. This sandbox becomes your playground for innovation, where you refine your skills and prepare to handle real-world challenges with ease. Now that you've laid the groundwork with this hands-on space, it's essential to explore how planning for Microsoft Fabric adapts to different business scenarios. Whether it's real-time data pipelines, machine learning models, or regulated industries, no two environments are the same. Let's look at how to tailor planning strategies so your analytics system works seamlessly in any context. Avoiding common mistakes in planning. What are the top mistakes DP600 candidates make during the planning phase? The planning step is where everything starts to take shape, so avoiding major pitfalls is critical. Mistakes here don't just affect day-to-day operations, they can derail entire projects or even lead to compliance issues. Let's talk about why planning errors happen, how they show up in real-world environments, and most importantly, how you can avoid them. One of the most common mistakes is underestimating capacity requirements. This might not seem like a big deal initially, but once your environment is up and running, the cracks can start to show. Take insufficient capacity, for example, it directly affects performance and the user experience. This often leads to throttling, where Microsoft Fabric limits resource usage because your system can't handle the workload. What does throttling look like in real life? Imagine you're running Spark jobs to process large data sets, and instead of completing in minutes, they stretch to over an hour or even fail midway. This prevents timely reporting, causes frustration among users, and makes you scramble to adjust your setup. One possible scenario could involve a company running both Spark jobs and live Power BI dashboards. If capacity isn't sized correctly to handle the simultaneous demand, dashboards take forever to load, or the Spark pipeline halts, creating bottlenecks across the entire department. The fix for this mistake starts with a thorough understanding of your organization's workload intensity and how Microsoft Fabric capacities are built to handle it. For example, workloads with high data ingestion or Spark transformations might require an F32 or F64 capacity to provide enough performance headroom. What's more, higher capacity tiers unlock features like Microsoft Copilot, which might be critical for your business needs. If you're using an F8 capacity for heavy mixed workloads, you're likely setting your environment up for failure. Accurately forecasting demand is the first step to avoiding these issues. Keep in mind that future growth should also factor into capacity planning. It's not just about what you need today, it's also about whether your setup can handle twice the workload 6 months from now. Another significant mistake is failing to account for data residency regulations. While capacity planning focuses on technical performance, data residency is all about compliance. This issue comes up frequently in industries like healthcare, banking, and government, where strict regulations determine where data can be stored or processed. While this might sound like a formality, the consequences can be steep. Failing to meet data residency requirements could not only result in legal penalties, but also damage trust with clients and stakeholders. In Microsoft Fabric, the easiest way to address residency concerns is by setting up separate capacities tied to specific regions. For example, if you manage datasets for European customers, their data must align with GDPR requirements, which might require provisioning a capacity in a European region. Overlooking this step can lead to expensive and time-consuming changes down the road. Misconfigured gateways are another major culprit behind poor planning outcomes. As we covered earlier, data gateways are the bridges between your data sources and Fabric, and choosing the wrong type can lead to security risks and operational disruptions. A common scenario involves organizations mixing up on-premises and virtual network gateways. Let's say you have data stored in an on-premises SQL server. Without an on-premises gateway in place, your connection will fail, leaving end users unable to access critical data in Power BI reports or Fabric pipelines. On the other hand, If your data resides in Azure behind a virtual network using an on-premises gateway instead of a virtual network, one can cause delays or even unauthorized access. These mistakes disrupt seamless integration, usually showing up as delayed query results, connection errors, or unprotected configurations that put sensitive data at risk. Both types of gateways are essential, but understanding where and when to use them is key to a solid setup. To help you steer clear of these mistakes, let's go over a simple checklist of common errors and tips to avoid them. First, always assess workload needs before choosing capacity. If your workloads rely heavily on AI services like Copilot, make sure you're choosing a capacity SKU of F64 or higher. Equip yourself with tools like Microsoft's capacity planning documentation to estimate resource needs. Next, ensure you evaluate compliance requirements during the planning stage. If your organization spans multiple regions, always set up regional-specific capacities aligned with applicable regulations. This is non-negotiable in industries where audits are frequent and data sovereignty is enforced. When it comes to data gateways, always verify the type of gateway each data source requires. An easy way to keep this organized is by categorizing your sources into two lists: on-premises and cloud, virtual network. Are your ERP systems legacy, stored locally? Then the on-premises gateway is the way to go. Is your data stored in Azure with private endpoints? That's where the virtual network gateway becomes essential. Double-checking this early keeps workflows intact after deployment. But knowing the pitfalls isn't enough. It's also important to understand how these mistakes manifest in real-world environments. Let's look at an example. A retail company that was transitioning to Fabric underestimated its Spark-related workloads and initially opted for an F8 capacity. What they overlooked was their need to run complex machine learning models nightly, which quickly maxed out their capacity, resulting in both performance delays and throttling. To fix the issue, they had to scale up to F32 during critical business hours, which required additional approvals and created interruptions for their analytics teams. This could have been avoided entirely with better workload assessments at the start. Another real-life issue involves data residency. Imagine a global pharmaceutical company uploading clinical trial data to Fabric. Without realizing it, admins accidentally processed European patient data using a capacity located in the US, violating GDPR. Fixing the error involved a significant overhaul of their existing setup, requiring new capacities, data migrations, and additional legal oversight, all of which delayed project deadlines. A simple compliance check, paired with proper capacity planning, could have prevented the legal and financial headaches entirely. Even mismanaging data gateways has disrupted operations for organizations. One company discovered too late that their pipelines were failing because they had configured their virtual network gateway incorrectly. As a result, their analytics team wasn't able to query critical datasets until IT resolved the problem, which impacted decision-making processes. The solution was simple: proper documentation and testing of gateway configurations prior to deployment. But skipping these steps cost them both time and missed opportunities. These common mistakes also play heavily into DP600 exam scenarios. You can expect questions that test your ability to calculate the right capacity size based on workload requirements or troubleshoot performance bottlenecks. Similarly, data residency and compliance come up frequently, often in the form of you have datasets for multiple regions. How should you set up your capacities? Knowing that the separate region-specific capacity is the answer can make all the difference. The exam also loves potentially problematic gateway setups, asking you to identify whether an on-premises or virtual configuration is required based on business needs. By practicing these scenarios, you'll not only pass your exam, but also strengthen your planning skills for real-world analytics environments. So why do these mistakes happen so often? It usually comes down to skipping planning in favor of rushing into implementation. It's understandable. Stakeholders want results fast, and the temptation to set up the environment quickly can be strong. But skipping detailed assessments in the planning phase leads to more work down the line. A poorly planned setup is essentially building a system on shaky foundations. Proper planning, on the other hand, aligns your environment with your organization's resource limits, long-term goals, and compliance obligations. It also leaves room for scalability. A flexible environment can easily adapt to increased workloads or compliance updates without requiring a full rebuild. At this point, you might notice that Everything we've covered today builds toward mitigation. The skills we've gone through, capacity planning, data gateway configuration, understanding compliance, are all designed to help you avoid the pitfalls we just discussed. By assessing capacity carefully, you won't find yourself confronted with throttling errors halfway through a project. By understanding data residency, your organization remains on the right side of the law while maintaining customer trust. And by selecting the appropriate gateway from the start, you ensure smooth data flow and prevent unnecessary disruption. Ultimately, avoiding these mistakes comes down to thorough preparation. Proper planning saves time, reduces frustration, and ensures long-term success. More importantly, it lays the foundation for efficient workflows, strong governance, and cost-effective performance. The DP600 exam reflects the same principle. It isn't just about memorizing technical details. It's about demonstrating that you can make informed decisions to support sustainable data solutions. Avoiding mistakes in planning is key to excelling not only in the exam but in your career as well. The ability to anticipate and prevent these issues sets you apart as a skilled analytics engineer and positions you as someone who creates truly scalable, compliant, and efficient solutions. And with these pitfalls sidestepped, you can look forward to building on this foundation in the next step. Planning isn't just about getting through the DP600 exam, it's about creating systems that solve real business problems efficiently and effectively. By aligning your analytics environment with business goals, you set up a foundation for success that drives impactful decision-making. Now, it's time to take action. Set up your free Microsoft Fabric Sandbox and test the concepts we walked through today. Practice capacity sizing, explore gateway configurations, and refine your Power BI themes to turn theory into skill. In the next episode, we'll explore how to bring your plans to life with development tools and processes. Don't miss it, you're building something incredible.